truck bound for the oil patch, and I said, geez, I hope the driver has a lead pillow under his seat as he delivers this toxic cargo to the oil patch. Well, wounded Alberta rage, man. Why don't you go back to the CBC where you came from? Why don't you go back east? But I still, I still had my theater rooms, I still had my theaters packed. And so you have to take a chance. You can't pander all the time. I mean, this was a country that would go quiet when you'd make fun of Tim Hortons donuts, for Christ's sake. I mean, we have this very dysfunctional deference to authority, and it's far more fractured than you realize. And it is a tough place to govern, no doubt about it, because there's so many different priorities and there's so many different peoples, and it's fractured along so many different partisan lines. And look, let me get it clear. I still think Justin's trying to do a better job than the last crowd of helmet-haired neocons, but still, their hypocrisy is galling, right? We're still doing business with Saudi Arabia, brother. We're still, we're selling weapons to Saudi Arabia. Listen, man, I think it's cool that he marches in pride parades and fights for women's rights. But, when you're selling arms to a country that has a history of hanging and shooting those people in the town square, you got to call them out for that shit. It's like, when Chrétien used to spin us with the bullshit that, doing business with China helps human rights. I'll believe that when I see the Dalai Lama and the head of China pulling 360s on a Bombardier Skidoo in Tiananmen Square. Until then, show me. But it's not all stridency either. It's like Bill Hicks used to say, you got to have a couple of dick jokes in your back pocket, man. And you have to balance your point of view with just some silly stuff. And I think that's where my colleagues and I have found a great balance over the last 4 years, is that we balance the silly with the poignant. And I had a tough summer this year. I lost my dad.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you very much. He was a good guy and very, very funny. And so the fourth act is kind of dedicated to him and his generation. And he was born to a semi-feral existence in Newfoundland where life was short and seagulls were supper back in the early 30s. And he used to say to me, Ronnie, if I get Alzheimer's, I'm taking a walk in the woods. And I'd say, Dad, if you get Alzheimer's, I'll drive you. And he used to roar at that and then beat me in crib. But so, the lads had my back when I was down there taking care of him this year. And I'm grateful for that. And I also have two great producers. You don't do it alone. I've had Lynn Harvey, who has produced my special since Quest for the West in 2006, and the 5 years of my series. And also Paul Pogue and Scott Montgomery, who've collaborated on the last 4 specials with me. I wrote the first 5 myself, and 6 actually, if you include Shaky Town. So, but it's nice when I really got used to the collaborative experience with the series. And it was a really good learning curve for me as a comedian. My first series, I wasn't very compatible in the writing room, I don't think. I was left to flounder really by the production company, Salter Street. And even though Black Fly was an excellent premise that could have been darker, and less broad, I'll put the blame on global television for that, for their, dismissive attitude toward our content and their reluctance to push the envelope on any sort of dark comedy. So it became far broader than I'd intended. But, as we all discover, television is a corporate gig, and it's a luck of the draw how you're allowed to be subversive or not. And so I try to be affably subversive in my shows. And I learned that traveling Canada, that Canadians don't like their comedy mean. But when you're going to tip that apple cart, you have to make sure that they're going to land on a cushion. Because there's nothing louder than 1,000 people going quiet at once.
That is very true. Social media, where do we go to follow you?
Ron James. I've got my Facebook page, and I've got my own website, ronjames.ca, and I'm also on Instagram, and Twitter. You can drop by anytime at all.
Fantastic, Ron. Looking forward to the special. Looking forward to what you're doing 2018. But thank you so much for this, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.